I don't know about you, but my brain is utterly fried this week. I had aspirations to do research and reading once my New Year administrative work was done. Then the Capitol was sacked. I was appalled to see Congresspeople, Republican and Democrat alike, being evacuated from their halls to safety. I saw pictures of individuals who sacked said Capitol wearing shirts saying 6 million Jews wasn't enough, or Camp Auschwitz. There was a noose hanging from scaffolding, and a Confederate flag was being waved unironically in the halls. This ominous scene was a bitter reminder of the unrest and danger occurring at the time of Jesus' birth. The consistent violence over the leadership of Jerusalem was the backdrop for Messianism. There were bitter fights for power among Jewish, Greek, and Roman leadership. Terrorist insurrectionists called Sakkari would intermittently stab important people in the court of the Gentiles at the temple to foment unrest and violence. It was not an ideal time to be alive. This week's quickly quelled coup was also a reminder of the troubling significance of Jesus' birth in the midst of the unrest of his time. Herod, the Rome-sanctioned Idumean puppet king of the Jews, was understandably afraid when the wise men came from Persia asking about the new king of the Jews, whose star had shown his birth. It was also no surprise that all of Jerusalem was afraid with him, as he was known for violent suppression of those who didn't support him. Any rival for the throne, however innocent, was never going to be given the chance to survive. His lust for power and insecurity about his outsider status made him a dangerous ruler, especially with Rome at his back. And the wise men, on the other hand, really weren't wise when you think about it. Who comes to the king of a nation and says, "We have come to pay homage to the new king who was born to you as his star told us"? How do you expect this to go well? I respect that astrology was a well-accepted science at the time, but come on. You didn't even at least consult the stars, or your source of news for that matter, on whether Herod just became a father before going into his court asking to find the baby? Bless their hearts, the Magi were decent fellows, but they were pretty naive when it came to the dark underbelly of politics. Matthew is putting us in a very uncomfortable situation here. Like Luke, he's saying, Herod? King Herod? Right. Nope, he's a false king. Our true king is Jesus, the actual heir of David. This is a lovely sentiment, but it's pretty darn costly if you speak it out loud. I think the question this fabulous story is asking is what, in the eyes of God, makes a true king for the people? Our gospel writers are demonstrating that the ones who think they're in charge because they took that power by force are in fact nothing compared to the power of God, who empowers the people to live in justice, righteousness, and peace. Mere birth doesn't make a good ruler. A good ruler is, by necessity, a good person. Let's look at Jesus and Herod and see what their methods say about how God's kingdom should look. In response to civil feuds between Hasmonean rulers in Judea, Rome declared Herod king of the Jews without any consultation with any Judeans. Herod is much like most rulers. He participates, albeit unavoidably, in the dangerous games of power plays. He is more concerned with preserving his power than with empowering others. He was known for brutality, loyalty to Rome before Jerusalem, and, according to Matthew, murdering innocent babies to eliminate the threat of Jesus usurping the throne. He had his first wife banished when he took over Jerusalem, so he could marry Miriamne, the granddaughter of former Hasmonean king John Hyrcanus II, only to eventually have her and several other family members, including sons, executed. He sought to suppress protests and had enemies removed by force. He sought to appease the Judeans by lavish building projects, often funded by heavy taxation. Jesus, on the other hand, calls for extra care for following the Torah. He identifies leadership and power in serving others. He teaches that the right life is built on righteousness, justice, and kindness. He stands up to justice without violent retribution. He heals those in need of healing. He shares power with his followers. He criticizes hypocrisy among those who claim to be leaders. He is willing to allow himself to be executed without staging a violent coup, for his vindication would come from resurrection from the dead. We have two very different views of what power looks like in leadership. But most of all, we have two very different views and examples of how to live. As Isaiah reminds us, in the wake of the tragic darkness in which we walk today, we find our hope when we remember that we have covenanted to follow the path of light shown to us by this King. Whether wise or not, the Gentile Magi knew a true king when they saw him. The king who honors and is honored by those who are part of his people and those who are not. We are following the one whom God has anointed, not the human powers that be, to lead us into a better way of being human. One of love, one of compassion, one of healing, one of justice, one of conversation, one of respect of the dignity of every human being. We are called right now to find in our souls where we struggle the most to love our fellow human beings. We are not in a family where the luxury of vengeance, hatred, violence, or destruction are acceptable ways of dealing with difference. While we are allowed to feel the less than ideal feelings in light of what has happened, we are not allowed to deny the face of God in others. We have a responsibility to show love in a time of hate. We are called to seek righteous justice in a time when corruption and lies contort us into intractable postures of hostility. We are called to hold accountable those who seek to destroy others, but beginning by looking inside ourselves to see if we harbor those tendencies or actions in our hearts. We have committed ourselves to following a king who is not bound to our politics, but bound to our relationships. If we align our lives to the law of the kingdom of heaven, we will live in such a way that our politics will lead us to better behavior than what we are seeing playing out in our nation, on our social media networks, and in the tired prejudices that undermine Christ's very kingdom. We are the body of God in the world. Like the star that guided the Magi to our King, may we shine our light so bright that it leads people to the realm of this King of peace. Amen.